is arguable, but I think to make a good case that the most famous person who ever lived was Jesus, which is strange in the sense that he didn't do any traveling. His earthly life was confined to a rather small corner of the world. He didn't write any books. He had no connections with the rich or the powerful. He held no offices of importance, any of these things. And to add to all of these facts, he died when he was barely into his prime. The thing about Jesus that brought him into this new light of interest was that, unlike anyone else who had ever lived up until that point, and there's only been one person since then to do the same thing, Jesus distinguished himself by rising from the dead bodily. Since then, the only other person to share in a similar destiny has been his mother. Once Jesus rose from the dead, it opened the door to a whole new era, and people took note of him. And to this day, countless people have committed themselves to following Jesus as disciples. The church has seen many martyrs. A martyr is a person who dies rather than to give up his faith. One of the responsibilities of the Pope is to canonize people who are worthy of the honors of the altar. And one category, canonization, has to do with witnesses to the faith. Jesus has inspired so many people, and he continues to do that. His resurrection is the reason for it. The thing about the resurrection of Jesus is that it means that he is alive right now. Not simply someone who lived 2,000 years ago. There are people who relegate him to the past and maybe look upon him with a kind of nostalgia, as if they were studying old stories. But Jesus is real. He's present. He lives among us. And people who understand this have really understood the most important thing in this world. That God is real. He's powerful. He's present. We can see him in his Son. Now, the first sign of his resurrection was on Easter morning when the women went to the tomb. They weren't expecting to see Jesus. They were expecting to anoint his body because he had not had a proper funeral. And they found the tomb was empty. And furthermore, the wrappings were lying in another place in the tomb. This was a surprise. I've seen the burial shroud, reported burial shroud of Jesus. The shroud of Turin is 14 feet from end to end, because there's two images. If Jesus was 6 feet tall, which is possible, 6 feet from his front side and his back view, the rest of the shroud. It's a photographic negative. Some people say it was a medieval forgery. Well, I don't know of anyone in medieval times who knew what a camera was. It doesn't make any sense. When the atomic bombs exploded in Japan, I'm hearing that some photographic images were found on sidewalks. The blast was so brilliant. In photography, it has to do with writing with light. So, could there have been this tremendous blast of light at the resurrection? No one saw the resurrection, but we have pointers to it. Now, if you come to church tomorrow, some people go to daily mass. or next Sunday, for the first week of Easter, starting today through next Sunday, the Gospels tell us, actually starting tomorrow through next Sunday, the Gospels tell us of Jesus' appearances to his followers in his resurrected state. So they weren't about to embrace the resurrection without Jesus actually showing himself to people. And Jesus said, "I am not a ghost. Touch my hands and my side. Give me something to eat." Jesus is showing the fulfillment of what it means to be human, a glorification of the human state, everything that awaits us who take our faith seriously, overcoming death and living a whole new life such that we're no longer confined to the limitations of space and time. This is the resurrection, the resurrected state, the resurrected body. The church has told us that the body that we now have, each of us has, is the body that will participate, if we're faithful to him, in the resurrection to life. It's important for us to be stewards of our bodies. St. Paul says, "Glorify God in your body." The body is not a disposable item. Now, mind you, we're subject to sickness, we're subject to suffering, we're subject to death. The resurrected state is a state in which the body is not subject to suffering, illness, to death. The body doesn't need food. It's be completely freed from earthly limitations. This is something we should think of. I remember a number of years ago, a man was feeling sick. He went to the doctor. The doctor said, "You need to go to the hospital right now." The man was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Now, the man was about 47. 10 days later, the man was dead. His friend, a Catholic, was upset about the fact that he lost this friend of his so quickly. And so he said, "I should stop smoking." Stop smoking? Sure, stop smoking. Take care of yourself. But why don't you come to church? How in the world can anybody participate in the resurrection without living the faith? And it's not my personal faith. It's not your personal faith. It's the faith of the church, which we recommit ourselves to every Sunday when we pray the creed. That's what is salvific. It's noteworthy that the people to whom Jesus appeared, he didn't appear to Pontius Pilate, he didn't appear to King Herod, in his resurrected state, He only appeared to members of his church, the handful of people who followed him. And one of the people who's always mentioned, almost always, in connection with Jesus' early appearances is St. Peter. St. Peter, we believe, is the one from whom the popes succeed. Pope Francis was recently elected. He is the 266th successor to St. Peter. The thing is, if it weren't for the church, we would have no connection with the resurrection. We wouldn't even know about it. When Jesus appeared on the evening of Easter, the first thing he did was went to the apostles in the upper room, breathed on them and said, "Whose sins you forgive are forgiven, those you hold bound are held bound." This is the basis for the sacrament of reconciliation. Reconciliation, forgiveness of sins. We pray in the creed, we believe in the forgiveness of sins, and the resurrection of the body. These things are very much connected. Faith, reconciliation, resurrection. This is what we're about. Many people in our society are very sad. In fact, 8 out of the top 10 selling drugs today are antidepressants, or now they call them anti-anxiety drugs. Why is there so much sadness? There shouldn't be. Don't we know what we have as Catholic Christian people, we have so much. The Lord's generosity cannot be outdone. Some people think it's a big effort to live the faith. It's worth it. With what the Lord is offering us, we're not worthy of it. But it's there if we want it. New life now and resurrection, conquering death itself.